Hello everyone, this is Mr. Wolf, and we are continuing to read Fred Korematsu Speaks Up. This is written by Laura Atkins and Stan Yogi, illustrated by Yutaka Houlette, and published by Hayday Books. Please head to the description below where you'll find a link to where you can purchase your own copy of Fred Korematsu Speaks Up. And we are on to Chapter 10, Rebuilding, 1945 to 1966. The war ends. The camps close. Japanese Americans try to rebuild their lives. Fred meets Catherine, a smart woman from South Carolina, full of curiosity, with 2 college degrees in science. They date through the summer, snuggling to music from the radio and dancing at Detroit's Eastwood Gardens. Catherine knows about Fred's case and agrees that he was right to fight for justice. Fred has found a new love and a partner for life. They get married, legally in Michigan. It would still be illegal in California, since Fred is Japanese American and Catherine is white. Then they move to Oakland, Fred's hometown, and have 2 children, Karen and Ken. Fred adores being a dad. Karen and Ken both become scouts, just like Fred and Walt used to be. Fred is always there to cheer for Ken at his Little League baseball games and for Karen at her ballet recitals. They love to watch the San Francisco Giants, their favorite baseball team, on their big box TV. The whole family goes to church, and Fred becomes a proud member of the Lions Club, raising money for people who need help. Fred works as a draftsman, drawing plans for buildings. Because he lost his case and was convicted of a crime, there are some jobs he cannot get, like working for a big company. So Fred takes 2 jobs to be able to buy a home and care for his family. A family. The life Fred dreamed about. When Karen is 16 and a junior at San Lorenzo High School, her friend Maya gives a report on Japanese American prison camps. Maya mentions a Supreme Court case, Korematsu v. United States. After Karen's last name rings out, 35 pairs of eyes stare at her. This is the first time Karen has even heard about the camps. Who is this Korematsu? Karen wonders. Maybe a distant relative? She rushes home and asks her mother, "What's this about?" Her mother tells Karen that it was her father's case. Her father? Her quiet, law-abiding, church-going father? Karen can't believe it. "Why didn't anybody tell me?" Karen asks. Her mother says that Fred was concerned, that she was too young to understand. Karen can talk to him when he gets home. Hours later, and the sun goes down, Karen waits. Finally, Fred walks through the door, and Karen asks him about the case. He tells her that it happened long ago. The United States Supreme Court ruled against him, but he believes he did the right thing. Karen can see that he has a hard time telling her even this little bit. After imprisonment. World War II ended when the Empire of Japan surrendered in August 1945. The government finally allowed Japanese Americans to return to the West Coast, but most of them had no homes or jobs. They faced anger and sometimes attacks from people who did not want them back. Fred's parents and brothers returned to their nursery, where they found hundreds of shattered glass window panes in the greenhouses. The buildings were falling apart because the tenants who had rented their nursery had not taken care of it. We have a picture. Daniel Inouye won medals for his bravery during World War II. He lost his right arm due to battle injuries. After the war, he wanted to get a haircut in Oakland. The barber told him, "We don't cut blank hair." Inouye thought to himself, "Here I am in uniform. It should be obvious to him that I'm an American soldier." and he's telling me we don't cut blank hair. Years later, Inouye became a United States Senator for the state of Hawaii. And we have a question for you to answer in the comments below. Have you ever learned something about your family that surprised you? All right, and we are going to start with some of the vocabulary words and go on from there. Reopen. To re-examine a case after a decision has been made and the case has been closed because of new evidence or other reasons. Overturn. To decide that a court ruling is wrong and to change it. And then on the other page, movement. A group of people working together to change something important to them. Like thousands of other Japanese Americans, Fred worked hard to resume his life after the war. But Fred had an additional challenge. He had been found guilty of breaking the law by refusing to report to the prison camp at Tanforan. The government and many businesses would not hire someone who had been convicted of breaking the law. Sometimes when Fred and Catherine were alone, he told her of his secret wish that he could reopen his case and get his conviction overturned. But he didn't know how that could ever happen. And we have a photograph. Fred, Catherine, Karen, and Ken Korematsu in 1966, the year Karen found out about Fred's case. Japanese Americans who had been in prison during World War II rarely talked about that experience, even to their children. It was too upsetting for many of them. Movements for justice. While Japanese Americans were rebuilding their lives, other groups in the United States were protesting discrimination and unfair treatment. During the 1950s and 1960s, African American activists and their allies created a nationwide movement to fight against racial segregation and unfair laws. Because of their hard work and determination, the government finally passed the Civil Rights Act of 1964. This law made discrimination based on race, color, ancestry, or religion illegal in hotels, restaurants, and other businesses, including barbershops. Around the same time, Mexican American and Filipino American activists built a movement to fight for the right of farm workers. These Latino and Filipino laborers picked most of the fruits and vegetables for the United States, but were treated unfairly because of their race and ancestry. Farm workers and their allies protested. Eventually, some farm workers got fairer pay and safer working conditions. And we have two photographs. One, Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., who's in the front row, second from the left, and other activists marching in Washington, D.C. for equal rights. Then lower down, farm workers and their allies protesting unfair working conditions and low pay. And we have a timeline, quite a longer timeline than our last few. 1945, August 14th. Japan surrenders and World War II ends. December 17th, 1945. Japanese Americans are allowed to return to the West Coast. 1946. Fred and Catherine marry in Detroit. 1964. The Civil Rights Act is passed. 1966. Karen learns about her father's case. 1970. Farm workers begin to get fairer pay and safer working conditions. So that is the end of Chapter 10. Please head to the link below where you can purchase your own copy of this incredible book, Fred Korematsu Speaks Up. And thank you so much for reading along with me.